welcome into the inaugural, first ever. That's what inaugural means, right? Jacked Ramsey's podcast. A part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am your host, Danny Meringue, or co-host, Danny Meringue. I've been saying host for so long now because I've been running solo for so long. First things first, obviously, Jacked Ramsey's new podcast, same place, different provider. Also, new co-host, Brandon Sprague, 1080 The Fan, 6 to 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
What's going on, buddy?
Dude, I'm super excited for this. I'm looking forward to diving into all things Blazers NBA stuff with you. I know we're going to have many a disagreement, but I couldn't be more jacked to get my Ramsey on.
There you go. That's going to be the first question. I've already gotten that soliciting questions we're opening this up in the mailbag. If you're listening to this in the first episode, the mailbag episode, there will be a free agency primer with Jake Fisher following this. But the Q&A mailbag edition, one of the many questions I got was, Jacked Ramsey, what is a Jacked Ramsey? What does Jacked Ramsey comes from? It comes from Ian Carmel, who I will give the crown to Beaverton's greatest. He holds the crown. I just can't,
like that.
I can't take it from him.
Okay.
Late night show lead writer. It's kind of hard to.
Are you top two, or does Golliver get number two?
Golliver gets number two.
Okay, all right.
It's a small town, but we've done pretty well, right?
If I told you got a bronze at the Olympics, you'd be happy.
Listen, man, podium place matters. All right.
Yes. You're up there. I see you on the camera on a stage.
See that? Listen, man, it's full on. Bite the metal, but it's still metal. It's not wood.
No.
But yeah, the name itself is stupid, but it's great at the same time. Ian threw out about 37 different ideas, and I ran with all of them and ran a little poll for anybody who was trying to catch on to what the hell it was I was doing a couple months ago. Ta-da! Here you go.
Yes. What finished second?
Oh, God. Rip City After Dark.
Rip City After Dark is good.
Was up there, and there was another one in there. It wasn't Jacked Ramsey's. God, now I can't remember. It was another play. Pod Don't Lie was up there, but that's
Pod. Yeah.
That's the name of another podcast. So that's like I had to push that one aside as good as it was. There was one other one in there that was almost the same as another one. Jacked Ramsey's, I knew I had a straight line. Like, nobody else has got Jacked Ramsey. So,
well, I'm looking forward to the fact that we're going to have random listeners tuning in going, oh, it's a cocktail podcast. And they're going to think that Jacked Ramsey is some new pod or some new cocktail. And they're going to tune in like, wait, they talked about basketball the entire time.
Is that a potential sponsor? We just need to find like a liquor sponsor.
I mean, doesn't that sound like a delicious drink you would get at a Portland bar as a Jacked Ramsey?
I mean, it certainly is. We might have to trademark that one ASAP.
TM, trademark pending.
Trademark pending. Well, hey man, I am thrilled to do this. For everybody who's listening, we're a couple minutes in. As far as what's different, it's going to be Brandon and I. Brandon will be here at least once a week during the season. I'll probably be doing some solo post-game ones. Depends on what happens with some other stuff I've got going contract-wise that hopefully I'll have some news on. Otherwise, it'll be the same for you guys. You'll get it from the same places. The only difference is you'll need to subscribe to the new feed. That is the main difference. And please subscribe to the new feed. That part of it matters. It'll still be at Blazers Edge. It'll still be on iTunes. It'll still be on Spotify. You just have to make sure you sign up for the feed. So if you're listening right now, stop, go back, sign up to the feed, come back. We'll be here for you.
Rate, review, tune in as much as you possibly can. I like to hang out with Danny and talk hoops. The ones that I'm not here, I'm sure are going to be amazing. And who knows, maybe when the regular season's happening, there's going to be, I'd imagine this coming season, Danny, there's going to be a lot of moments where I'm going to be like, hey,
I probably need to hop on the pod.
We need to have a discussion real quick for 30 minutes before I go to bed to wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And that's, I think as far as launching a new podcast, this is probably about a good or as bad a season as you can imagine.
Oh, man. So, yeah.
So let's get into it here where we spent a first few minutes. It's kind of the housekeeping stuff. I'm not going to do these in any particular order other than what I have listed here. This is from GS4000 at HZ46Z, blah, 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 blah. Would it be better for the team if we gave a bigger role to Nurk like he had before his injury and possibly having Siakam as our second or third guy? Would this benefit the team? I'll let you take this one first because I've got a lot of pieces I want to chew off of this.
So if you're just talking about the CJ Pascal Siakam trade rumor that I think Jake Fisher had, and I'm sure Danny, you're going to bring it up with him. Absolutely. I mean, the Jokic wanting to be Jokic 2.0 for him. I don't know if I go that far, but I would be totally open to him because he's such a great passer, getting the ball more up top. And if you're going to have Pascal Siakam as an option at the wing, I think you would take that. Pascal Siakam can play off the ball, and by that I mean he's moving. He's not just going to stand there and wait for the other point guard to stop dribbling. That's kind of what we have now. Absolutely, I think you would savor the moment you get a Pascal Siakam to pair with Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I kind of blacked out when I saw Pascal Siakam on the team. I was like, wait, did that already happen? Like, first of all, I don't believe that's possible as the market currently sits. I
don't understand why Toronto would want to do that.
I don't think CJ would be a part of this team ending up in Toronto. It doesn't make sense for that team. They're guard heavy already. Them drafting Scotty Barnes, you were on the draft show, definitely was a signal of them looking to have Siakam on the market. There's no doubt about that. But CJ McCollum, 29, 30-year-old CJ McCollum does nothing for them. That doesn't make any sense. Beyond that, I have said pretty regularly, getting Jusuf Nurkic the ball in the middle of the floor is the second best thing the Blazers can do. The first best thing they can do is put the ball in Damian Lillard's hands. That's the cascading effect. When you have Nurk making decisions in a short roll, more often than not, he's not Jokic, he's not even Draymond in that regard, but he is very good. And it puts the Blazers in a different and more unique attacking position. More often than not, you're putting Nurk in a 4-on-3 situation, so you're just from a numbers perspective, you're operating at an advantage. Beyond that, it gets other guys involved. It's less dribbling. It's more, Nurk, I've often said, is the guy most likely to want to make a pass first. That is his first thought, is make pass. I am Nurk, I make pass. That's the way I look at it, right?
I get the ball, I make pass.
I mean, realistically, it's just like he likes to get a little saucy with it. That's what he does.
He does.
And so I think that becomes contagious. So getting him the ball and making him or letting him make decisions in the middle of the floor, I think is a beneficial thing. I would like to up his usage in that regard because it keeps Dame and CJ from pounding the air out of the ball a little bit more than they should.
I think, Danny, you're hitting on something there for me. And this has kind of been as long as CJ's here. And honestly, even if CJ leaves, I'd still like to. I've been clamoring for Damian Lillard to just – I know he's off the ball 5 possessions a game, but I've been clamoring for that dude to kind of pick up that Steph Curry, Rip Hamilton type trade of run in and out of screens, free yourself up, get some miscommunication from the defense. And look, he's an amazing player with the ball. So obviously he's been doing a lot of things right, but that's the one area that
catch and shoot's pretty nice though too. He has shot the hell out of the ball, off ball his whole career.
I've always wanted to see him do that more. And I'm not going to blame Stotts. It's probably a collective thing. Dame likes to have the rock, but I'd love to see more off-ball stuff from Dame.
And here's the thing, and this is a little bit of have your cake and eat it too. Dame has said, I'd like to play like the Warriors. I would like to have the capacity for you to want to play like the Warriors, Dame. I would like you to run off-ball like Steph and have that willingness to operate like that, but you don't number one, want to give up the ball. Number two, when you give up the ball outside of Jusuf Nurkic, I don't trust anybody else to make the correct and right decision regularly to make that kind of offense work. Like it's that everybody's like, oh, you just run a Kerr-esque offense. I'm like, if it was that simple, everybody'd be running a full motion offense. You have multiple Hall of Famers on the floor. Mm-hmm. That's the difference.
How much do you think, let me ask you this, Curry probably has this in him anyway because he's amazing. How much of Curry coming into the league along Monte would you say helped him become so much better off the ball?
Because Monte's on ball so much.
Yeah, because Monte was such a ball dominant dude that it was like, okay, well, I'll run around then, I'll get open, and I'm such an amazing shooter. I wonder how much of that, like Dame came in and he was instantly the point guard for Nick, for Wes, for Rolo, for LA. I always wondered how much that helps guys like Steph and Dame come in and need to go off ball versus, hey, come run everything for us right away.
I think that's a pretty intrinsic thing as far as like what they are, because if running without the ball was as easy as a lot of people pretend that it is, you would have more guys that are motion shooters in NBA history. Because everybody's like, well, it's just about work. It's not just about work. It's a big part of it. But when you have to cover that, like, you have to have a level of skill and trust and want and desire to do that, because you may make a lot of effort and not get that ball back. Like we talk about with Steph, like he runs these guys ragged. Yeah, he does, because he spent 3 years doing it and then getting the ball back. And I think that's part of the trade-off is you can get guys that will do that, but if they're not rewarded, number one, it's not going to work. If they're not rewarded and then they're not successful, that's the other part of this. Like for everybody who talks about wanting to do this, there's only one JJ Redick. There's only one Duncan Robinson. Like Duncan Robinson's about to get $20 million a year because he's the only dude in the league who shoots the living hell out of the ball and runs 4 miles a day.
Yeah.
Like it's just, if it was that easy, more guys would do it. So
I think the big thing you hit on there too, that second word you used, trust. Steph's been in positions where Clay's getting 60 on 8 dribbles, or Draymond single-handedly
12 total dribbles in that game.
Unbelievable. Or KD's in town and he's like, oh, I'm going to be the MVP. And Steph's like, cool, I'm just going to run around and get some threes. Dame has never had that moment really in his career.
He did early playing with LaMarcus. He played. Remember how effective Dame and LaMarcus worked off each other?
Yeah, I do remember that. That's why I wanted to see it more. But, he got put in a position where it's like, hey, Dame, carry CJ and everybody else and take us to the playoffs every year. And how many moments did he have where he's like, I can't trust this whole team?
Yeah, and I think that's a long, convoluted way to answer this question as far as like elevating Nurk. Listen, I would love to elevate Nurk. I think that's a proper thing to do if they're going to retain him, because if they're going to keep him, he can't just be a dude. Like he has to be featured, right?
You got to prioritize him, because you either look at re-signing him, or if it really goes to S, but he has a great year being a facilitator, maybe there's intrinsic trade value, right? Because it's an expiring contract anyway.
It's got to be gone at the deadline.
It's a rental situation. Yeah. So either way, I would rather see it, because you haven't been doing it as much.
Yeah. As far as the Siakam stuff, listen, if Siakam's on this team, he'll have higher usage, but I still want Nurk being that pivot point in the middle of the floor. Right, is that kind of where you would sit on it, or?
Yeah. No, I would rather, Dame continues to do what Dame does, but then he also trusts Nurk more to create plays while Pascal is either going down to the block or he's running around cutting or getting open looks from three. That's what I would like to see.
All right, this one's going to be a little bit off the beaten path. I kind of like mixing these questions in. This from Adam Antium, at Adam_Antium, based off enjoyment, not skill, or how they would mesh. What are your 5 starting favorite Blazers of all time?
Oh, man.
So not necessarily skill, just
enjoyment.
Enjoyment or fit.
Okay. My number one pick, it's off the beaten path a little bit. It's a controversial one at that, I think. My number one pick, I'm going Rasheed Wallace.
Okay. You're not that far off.
I had attitude problems as a kid. I totally related to Rasheed Wallace. I love the flagrant foul stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think Rasheed Wallace would be one of the highest paid players at that position if he got to play in this era. Yes. Because he was doing what we love back then. Rasheed would be my number one pick. Do you want me to list the next 4? Or we go one by one.
No, go. Give me your 4. Like you seem to have this one like locked and ready to go. Fire, baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Rasheed at the 4. I'm gonna go Sabas at the 5. How did you not love watching Sabas make passes? Number 3, I'm gonna go J.R. Ryder, because again,
you like insanity, okay?
Dude, I love insanity and I love dogs, man. I want dogs on the floor. Number 2 is a tough one for me, man. Number 1 has got to be Dame, but the 2 spot.
See, this is not tough for me.
I'm gonna go B-Roy.
Attaboy.
Okay. Yeah, I want JR, B-Roy, and Dame. I want to see what that is. It's bad, it's awful, but I still want to see what that is.
So I did this in the sense I went less off of enjoyment and more about fit.
Okay.
And not necessarily the best players. The first 2 are going to be the best in my mind outside of Dame. And I'm actually not going to take Dame in this group, which some are going to call this sacrilege. So maybe I'll just get that one out of the way first.
Well, I think, hold on, we need to pause. This is a list not of saying this is the 5 that if I made a team of Blazers.
It's just like, how would you like it as far as like enjoyment?
Just enjoyment, because if I'm doing that, I'm Dame, Clyde, like Bill, like, you know what I mean? You're doing the obvious picks there. I'm trying to go off a little beaten path.
I am too, and that's the thing. Is like I'm talking about like actual fit.
Yes.
And so when I look at this team, I'm like actual fit. Like how would I want this to work? And I settled on at the point, and this anybody who knows me, this is going to shock absolutely no one. Andre Miller.
Trey Day, baby.
I have been a Andre dude since day one.
Yes.
I mean, I used to watch Cavs games just to watch Andre, just because I loved watching this dude who seemingly was smaller, slower, less explosive than anybody, but was just smarter than everybody on the floor and just killed you with his head the entire time. And you're just like, are you kidding me? Over and over and over again. It just blew my mind. And every time I looked at it, it was just like, this guy is incredible. Number two, or
I loved him at Utah, by the way. Like when he was playing at Utah. Remember
in college, yeah.
And then he goes to the Cavs, and I was like, I didn't care about the Cavs, but I'm like,
they had dope jerseys back then. That was kind of the thing.
Yeah, those blue and white ones, right? Those Terrell Brandon ones. But I was always like, dude, Andre Miller was my dude. I thought it was dope when he came here.
Yeah, so Dre, best lob passer of all time, has one of the most iconic 52-point games of all time. Just ridiculous, 2-inch jumpers over and over, death by 1,000 paper cuts. And again, at the 2, no shock, Brandon. Brandon's my guy through and through. At the 3, I kind of wanted. I always had this affinity for Stacey Ogdman.
Oh, I heard a great Stacey Ogdman story, but I can't share it on the air.
Oh, okay. We'll save that one. That'll be the Patreon version.
You better be paying some money for that Patreon version.
I love stories you just like immediately like, oh. Like I've got when we get done, I've got Birdman stories that will blow your mind.
I love the elbow pad. Stacey Ogdman with the elbow.
The Plastic Man, dude. He's just, he was that dude. And I'm going to cheat and I'm going to put Sheed at the 4 or Sheed at the 5.
Okay.
Like the whole idea of like Rasheed Wallace playing alongside Brandon Roy was just something like just sits in my head so well because Sheed never wanted to be the number 1 and Brandon was so clearly the dude.
Yep.
Like if you're talking about fit, so you've got a number 1, you've got a number 2, you've got a table setter, you've got a defender. Now you're like, I need an offensive wild card. And I'm just like, Cliff Robinson at the 5 in today's NBA would just have been an absolute just masterpiece.
You made me. Uncle Cliffy was ahead of his time. I'm taking JR out. Give me Uncle Cliff.
Because that's the thing is you could legitimately slide Cliff from 3 to 5.
Anywhere. Yeah, he was 6'10", but
he was 6'10", put the ball on the floor, run the floor. Poor rebounder, but I don't give a damn. Like it would have just been such a fun team. Like just imagine Dre running the floor, Brandon Roy on one wing, and you had Rasheed Wallace, Stacey Ogdman, and Cliff Robinson running the floor with you.
It'd be insane.
Just 3 6'10" dudes who can all basically play like 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
Well, I guess Ogdman was 6'8", but he just felt 6'10" because he had 7'2" wingspan. But yeah, that's a fun one. Appreciate that one. We're gonna loop back here. We've already kind of hit on it, but I think we'll kind of hit on it here a little more largely. From Josh Bullock at Jab Aspie, is there a report from The Athletic about talks between the Raptors and Blazers about a Siakam for CJ plus anything to be excited about? I mean, yeah.
The deal itself. I mean, getting Pascal Siakam alongside Damian Lillard, and I know Siakam. Is he a 1? Probably not, but Pascal Siakam all day over what you currently have.
He's better than CJ McCollum.
It's not even a contest.
Yeah.
It's 6'8", it's athletic, it's do everything, play off the ball, play with the ball, go get a last shot, don't get a last shot. Like Pascal Siakam, and I know the reports him and Nick Nurse had some weird spat kind of at the end there, but I'll take Pascal Siakam all day to play with Damian Lillard. Are you kidding me? We need that. What have we been asking for? Wings, athletic wings.
Ben Simmons is the best player you can get with CJ McCollum if it were to happen. Pascal Siakam is the next closest.
Yes.
And does he have a little bit of a wart, so to speak, with some of his game? Sure. Not the best handle in the world. A little bit of an inconsistent shooter. He's a 6'9" hybrid 3-4-5 that can do everything. It's the most valuable position in the league is the big-bodied wing, and Portland has quite literally not had one in over a decade. Like the closest they have had to anything remotely like that is LaMarcus, and he's more of the 4-5 as opposed to the 3-4.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's if they're and now as far as getting excited about it, I will say this:
I'm not ready. I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And like I said, we'll talk. If you're listening now, you can flip over to the other version or the other pod, and you can hear me with Jake Fisher, and we'll talk about this specifically. We're recording this before I've talked to Jake, but I'm going off of my own intel. I don't expect Portland to land Simmons or Siakam, but if they do, it will be because the markets for both those guys has dried up, that it is less than those teams want it to be for, and it will take 7, 10, 12 days. So August 10th, 11th, 12th, if we're around that time and those guys are still with their teams and Ben Simmons and Klutch are sitting there like, get me the bleep out of Philadelphia, I am not showing up, because there's no way he can go back to Philly. They can't play that game right now.
No.
It's just it's too untenable. So the package between what Morey's asking for versus what they're going to ultimately get is going to be a pretty large gap in my opinion. But I still think they're going to get something. Now, the Siakam stuff, it's not nearly as toxic. Masai has done a better job of managing whatever has happened with that situation. But I do believe that it is untenable, but not irreconcilable. So you may be able to get him to play good soldier. But how thrilled is he going to be knowing that his heir apparent was just drafted?
Right.
So do I think that there's smoke there? No, but I could definitely see some sticks being rubbed together and you could see a spark in the distance.
I guess I when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Because it basically, the report says they've talked, but not like extensive, deep talks. I get why Portland would want to. I don't know why Toronto would want CJ, because they're still.
They'd have to reroute him somewhere else.
They'd have to, right? Because there's a rumor about Lowry doing the sign and trade with Simmons. I don't know if that's going to happen because Miami's doing all kinds of big moves to bring in a guy like Kyle Lowry. But if Lowry Simmons is still a thing, that makes sense to me, because you're going with the 6'10" guard who's going to have kick out targets versus running with Fred VanVleet and CJ McCollum. And then get rid of Siakam. I guess I don't, even with Scotty Barnes, I don't really understand that kind of build.
Yeah, I don't know as far as like the whole idea of keeping some of their older guys. I think that they would, as far as I have understood it, the discussions that have taken place that have involved Siakam or Simmons have been a swap for those two guys. Now, CJ might end up routed to Philadelphia as a part of this, and I don't know if that is different from direct discussions that Toronto has had with Portland and with Philadelphia removed. That's been the biggest problem with CJ, is that there's not a lot of one-for-one swaps that make sense. There are plenty of three-team deals where you can like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. But, I mean, how often have we seen O'Shea be able to, land a big three-team deal?
Well, and didn't, I'll give credit. Eric Gunderson, I think, tweeted something before the pod, was like, not to put the cart in front of the horse, but when was the last trade we heard about from the Blazers before they made it?
Yeah. You don't typically... You might hear about it of a lesser guy just because their agent's trying to, generate a little bit of something spicy. But other than that, no, that doesn't happen. And that's, as we're recording here Sunday night, I have been poking and prodding and trying to find free agency noise, and it is quiet. It's, I think tomorrow's actually going to end up being pretty damn explosive. So not necessarily for Portland, but just in general, I think we're going to hear a lot of news dump real quick. All right, on to the next one. Mark Hakes at Hakes Mark. Is Noel the best backup center that we can get in free agency? What do you think? Is Nerlens Noel, when you're talking about who's available out there, where does he sit on your board?
I think he's up there because I actually like Nerlens Noel. Is it the game-changing move? Probably not. But, I mean, for a backup center role, a dude who's going to play defense, he has some experience, kind of knowing how to fit in with teams despite his offensive deficiencies. I like Nerlens Noel. I don't know if I'd give him the clear-cut number one. I'd have to go back and look at the entire list of centers, but of backup center options, Nerlens Noel is up there for me for sure, because what did Neil say we need to address? It was defense.
Yeah, well, defense and big, because especially with you lost Zach for nothing.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's over. And Quick told us that, right? He wasn't going to extend the qualifying offer. That's official now. So, yeah, of options out there for backup centers, Nerlens Noel, I would really like that.
there's two things that they need to prioritize: defense and athleticism, because they put the least defensive, least athletic front court probably in the NBA, and that's not hyperbole. Enes Kanter, Carmelo Anthony is drastically underwhelming in both athleticism and defense, and I think you're going to see a hard correction, and whether that means like a Willie Cauley-Stein type. He was on the list, but he's been picked up in Dallas. His $4.1 million option. I tweeted out, that's one less guy. Even if it's not somebody that Portland ultimately would have landed, you want a few more guys in the market, because there's more guys, there's more fish in the barrel. You can go out and maybe land one. Noel is getting plenty of interest. Bobby Portis is probably re-signing in Milwaukee. PJ Tucker is probably re-signing in Milwaukee. So these big-bodied end-of-bench wings, these backup fives, they're becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer before free agency even starts. I definitely put Noel up there as far as somebody who would make sense for Portland in a big overhaul sense.
Let me throw a couple names at you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
How would Bismack Biyombo make you feel?
Not terrible.
Yeah.
I'd honestly, Gorgie Zhang is a name that I have on the list.
I'm seeing that list. Yeah. What about how much do you think Kaminsky's going for?
He'll get no, he won't get BAE. He'll get a vet man. He got played off the floor in the finals.
He did get played off.
He's perfectly capable as a regular season backup big.
Yeah.
Like he's a solid playmaker. He can get you a little bit of offense, and he's a legit 7-footer, but he's unplayable in the playoffs when you're talking about having to guard anybody in space.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this list right now, man. There's, Howard supposedly wants to go back to
He's going to go back to LA as last I had heard.
You're not bringing Giles. I like Gorgie Jang. The list isn't amazing. I think Nerlens Noel is for sure in your top 3 of guys you take on.
Not only that, like I've been working on this for a couple weeks now. I've got a piece coming out breaking down what I used to do about Damian Lillard every year was like, how can he improve? And one of the biggest issues that they've had is Dame has been a subpar interior passer. To what extent, it's kind of actually mind-blowing when you stack him up against the next generation guards. Having a no-excuse rim runner like Nerlens Noel could go some way to alleviating that. But even when you watch the premier hostage dribble guards, the Jaws, the Trays, the Lucas, Ben Simmons, there's such a distinct difference in how they attack in those areas. But they also do have legitimate rim running threats. So if Portland was able to get one of those guys, and that's the other thing. There's going to be minutes there because you can't rely on Jusuf Nurkic to play all 82. So right. Nerlens is a guy who could anchor your defense for 15 games a year, and you're not going to bat an eye. You're going to lose some offensive production. He doesn't have the best hands, all those things. But yeah, if they could get Nerlens Noel for a TPMLE, well done. Well done.
Yeah, you just hope you're not losing Nurk for the amount of time you lost him this past year, because then I think you're into...
You start squinting a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little too much time for Nerlens to be the starter because he's not going to give a lot to you offensively.
No, but hey, man, remember, 3-guard lineup, really good offensive rating.
We checked the numbers, Jace, and quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, if you squint real hard on a Tuesday when you have bacon and eggs for breakfast, they're really good. What? Screw you, Neil. God, I just hate that stuff.
I know.
All right, so here's another one from Matthew at Reverend Romulus. Should I be more concerned Neil won't find a way to trade CJ, or that Norm won't re-sign with the Blazers? I'm deliberately ignoring Dame being traded as a possibility.
I'll let you start. You got stuff on that. I think this is a fairly easy one to mentally prepare yourself for it not to happen. This is an easy one for me, but I'll let you start.
Yeah, you should be more concerned with not being able to trade CJ. That's the bigger, Norm not being re-signed is a massive problem, and it signals Dame gone. Not being able to trade CJ is Dame gone, and you're stuck with CJ probably for his contract without having to give up picks and get off them later down the road. That's the difference. The level and rebuild changes.
Well, yeah, we'll get into the Norm stuff, I'm sure, but I still am kind of puzzled. I've randomly been thinking about this. I'm at Fred Meyer, and I'm thinking about this. Why would Norm want to sign if CJ's back? Yeah. Well, he could want this or that, and I'm sure they're going to pay more money than most teams, but that there's still so much hinging on it that to that listener's point, I would be much more concerned about not trading CJ because I'm not convinced he's trading CJ.
I don't believe he's fully committed to the idea of doing it. It just
let me ask you this. What happened? This could just simply be he had no leverage and he thought he did, but it was very obvious that he didn't once they got eliminated. What changed from Jason Quick reporting he was, I think he said 85%, he was like some high percentage sure that they were trading CJ, to his latest hit on our station, 1080, saying, nah. Like, I want to know in that span what Neil heard, learned, etc. to go from, oh yeah, I'm going to trade him to I'm running him back. Because basically he's been telling us he has no trade out there.
Yeah, the market. That's what it was. The market was, everybody's like, oh, I could see CJ for Simmons if, maybe if the 76ers include Tybal. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Did you say the 76ers are including something else in that package?
It's Portland offering more. Like, why would the Sixers give up Tybal for CJ?
Before the Simmons stuff where he went sideways in that series, I had somebody ask me, what is a logical offer for Portland to make for Ben Simmons? And keep in mind, before all of this, Simmons was arguably the best defender in the NBA.
I thought he was Defensive Player of the Year this year, man. I watched a lot of his games. He's amazing.
He's phenomenal. He in my mind, he is the best defender in the NBA. What he can do is unbelievable. But when you take a look at him, multi-time All-Star, All-NBA defensive team, likely best defensive player in the league, and at the time he was 24 years old. And then somebody said, what would you give up for Ben Simmons? I go, CJ and 3 first-round picks. And then things went sideways, and they're like, oh, you can get him straight up. And I'm like, no, you can't. No, you can't. You cannot go get a 25-year-old most valuable defender in the league for 30-year-old CJ McCollum. No, you can't. He would have to nuke his value so much in order for that to actually happen, which that could happen. Like that could happen, but straight across in a normal world, no, that can't happen. So, yeah, I just look at that stuff and it's just like, it's frustrating. It's that his values decline, and that actually leads into the next question I think really well. And this drives some people crazy, but I think it's a good question when you're looking at it holistically, like where the Blazers are at right now. This is from Tony at PNW_roots. With hindsight being 2020. What CJ trade should have been done, year for who, then what subsequent opportunities would have existed. Basically, he's going full Loki here and looking for the alternate timeline.
Oh, yeah. Great show, by the way.
That was fantastic.
Well, look, this might be our first disagreement. I'm looking forward to your answer on this. The trade that never happened that should have, without hesitation, was Paul George.
Okay.
Look, Kawhi Leonard was out there. Paul George was the trade because you were getting 2-3 years ahead of the CJ McCollum contract situation of landing and committing yourself to 4 or 5 years with that dude. Paul George could have been had by the Indiana Pacers for CJ McCollum, maybe Nurkic, but a bunch of assets along with CJ. And all the reports suggest Neil tried, but basically wouldn't give up CJ. He should have identified it in that moment.
15, 20, 27. Those are the picks that he put down.
Paul George in a heartbeat for CJ and some picks. Would he have stayed in Portland? Maybe not. But
he stayed in Oklahoma City.
If they would have won, and I think they would have, because Dame is a last-second shot guy. Paul is good for most of the game. Like, I think that would have been an amazing pairing.
Yeah.
But Paul George, to me, because I don't know the full details of the Jimmy Butler stuff, Paul George, to me, is the one that I look back and go, you missed your shot, man. That was your shot for a 6'10" wing.
You had him. You had Jimmy. And as much as I like those, I don't, even if they made CJ available, I don't know if Pritchard was still willing to not screw Paul over.
It's very possible. I would totally not dismiss that either, that Kevin was like, dude, I'm not taking this 503 phone call.
Yeah, no. And that was, for everybody wondering, that was a thing. Like, Now, with PA gone, I don't know how much that exists now, but that it was a problem. So in that regard, the time that I would have done it was the time when I had the most leverage and the most control. And that's a few months later. 2017 draft. 2017 draft. You've got people on the phone. CJ's value is still very high. Very high at that point in time. There's still that, well, he could have one more gear left. You've still, yeah, okay, I could talk myself into this. 20, 25, 26-year-old CJ McCollum. Yeah, I can talk myself into that. You've got that. You take that pick and you take Donovan Mitchell. And everybody who's ever questioned this about me saying this, anybody and everybody who was there that night, the 500 people at Spirit of 77 when we hosted the draft show, I was livid when they took Collins. I had a microphone in my hand and I went, what the brr?
Dropped an F-bomb in the bar?
Oh yeah, on the mic. I was, because I actually announced it before it went live because I had somebody tip me that was going to be the pick, and I didn't. I had the mic just kind of like right here, like, "Hey, we got Blazers coming up," and I, as the phone went off, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
What was the bar reaction?
Huh? It wasn't pin drop. It was just a full on like eyebrow raise.
We were waiting for Collins. We were waiting for Bam. We were waiting for Donovan. Yeah, OG. Like, we were expecting one of those, and he traded him for Zach Collins, who he just declined to give a qualifying offer to for $7 million. He called him. He called him a franchise
cornerstone.
Building block.
No, cornerstone.
Cornerstone.
And he was a hybrid of, I know this because I've quoted it more times than I ever care to. He is a hybrid of LaMarcus Aldridge, Rasheed Wallace, and Kevin McHale. Yeah. That was the plug that night.
And he couldn't give him the $7 million qualifying offer going into this last year because he's not been good or healthy. Like,
and this isn't a revisionist history thing. You can go on Twitter, you can see everything that I wrote over and over and over again.
That was a questionable pick. It's not revisiting history. No. You hit Donovan Mitchell, but it's not revisiting. We talked about this on our radio show, and people were like, it better not be like, we had people like, it better not be Zach Collins. He's rumored to be around there too. And I'm like, I always thought, no,
they wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't do that. Quick was talking about how Neil loved Mitchell because he's 6'3". He's got like a 6'10" wingspan. He's got big old hands. And I'm like, okay, maybe they go Donovan, trade CJ. No.
Even my thought in that time period has always been this. Even if Donovan Mitchell is only 75% of CJ McCollum, you're going to get 75% of CJ McCollum at $4 million as opposed to at the time $24 million. And you could take and move CJ for a Jimmy Butler, for a Paul George. Like, let's rewind to that time period. Is OKC a little bit antsy? And like, I don't know if PG is going to resign. I don't know if he wants to be here long term. Does CJ and somebody get it done? And now you've got a core of Dame, Donovan, and Paul George. Your finances are infinitely better. Your team positioning is infinitely better. And that's this whole thing. It's
you're straight making me depressed.
I'm not going to lie. Part of the reason I tweeted out a couple hours ago what Portland currently has under contract and what tools they have available to them was to drive home the point of just how blatantly screwed they are currently.
And tell me this, like, I didn't pick Jimmy, but let's run the scenario that he trades CJ for Jimmy Butler at one of those two turning points since when Jimmy was getting traded.
When he was available.
When he was available, teams were like, hey, this dude's not good for us. We need to dump him. What is there a better city for a guy named Jimmy Butler who loves coffee and probably would have fit in perfectly with the scene here? Like, could you imagine?
And is an
Jimmy
actual
Butler,
legit grinder, like grinder, right? Like Dame and him are on the same level when it comes to putting in work.
He's a bulldog. He doesn't care about the bullshit. He wants hard work from other teammates.
Yep.
I can totally see this guy shirtless in the Willamette on a jet ski in the summer. Like, yeah, we just got to the West Finals, baby. We're winning the chip. Like, it was a fit. And he just punted on it and said, I'm going to run this with 6'3" guards. Let's do it.
It's mind-blowing. And if for everybody who wants to talk about, again, not just the CJ stuff, but just revisionist history, well, it takes 2 GMs. Dog, you've had a decade. I'm so tired. Like, I typically try to stay out of the comments for, like, being too divisive on either my own articles or stuff like that on Blazers Edge. But there are things like, if you're still making those excuses in year 10, I just don't have the time or the patience for you.
You can't get anything done if you're using that as a crutch.
No, I can't do. You're starting or having a discussion that I cannot take part in. Like, I can't be open to that because you have seen a literal decade of basic asset malfeasance regularly. The biggest chips he has ever had, LaMarcus Aldridge, the 2016 cap space, the 2017 drafts, every single time he has had a blue chip prospect ability in his hand, he has screwed it up. And so, what about Damian Lillard? I'm like, okay, fine. I'll give you Damian Lillard after Chad Buchanan did a year's worth of legwork.
Stop. Everybody knows what that was. By the way, he was a top 6 pick. Let's stop acting like it was some diamond in the rough that nobody else was going to
The real one legitimately is CJ. He did do well. For Giannis was not the guy that everybody thinks he is now. Like,
we saw that picture.
There were a couple of GMs that were high on the ability of what he could be in 5 years.
If we were to give listeners who missed that picture on the finals an idea, the side by side between Giannis being drafted and Giannis now was
6'9", 185 pounds.
It was Danny as drafted Giannis, and then this was me, Giannis in the finals. That's what it looked like, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah,
and you give Milwaukee credit for that, but still, it's like, who's to see 4 inches growing?
4 inches and 55 pounds, 60 pounds?
55 pounds of raw. Does that dude have more than 3% body fat? No way. Like, that dude, it's unbelievable.
It's dumb. But the track record is what it is, and I hate like hitting on this over and over and over again. But I feel like that's what this is gonna be for the next couple months. Is just like, remember, this is where the team is at. These are the options available to them. Here's what it's gonna look like. Like, we're a month away from legitimately talking about like Michael Beasley and Emmanuel Mudiay being rotation players.
He's going for the Summer League championship.
It's not just that. I will bet you whatever.
You think they're both gonna make it?
That's what I was to say. I'm trying to figure out what the line is here. Give me a second. I think they're gonna add a third veteran to this group.
Why is he adding veterans? Like, what's he doing for the summer? Like, why?
I mean, why did he say that Anthony Tolliver and the ghost of Pau Gasol were the deepest team he'd ever had?
To sell tickets.
So, yeah.
But Emmanuel Mudiay, I mean, like, I don't need to see Emmanuel Mudiay. I know how bad he is.
I'm trying to. So they're going to have, I think they're going to have 3 vets. They've got Mudiay, they've got Beasley, and I think there's going to be a third vet to be named later.
Danny, we know what this is going to be. I'm going to add some bets, and people are going to watch them, and they're going to go, I don't know, man. Beasley was dominating Summer League. I think you need the rotational player. And Neil's going to be like this.
Yep.
Exactly.
I think I want to put the number at 1.5. 1.5 players in Summer League.
Being on the active roster.
Active rotation players.
Oh, my God.
And I'm going to take the over.
Well, then I'm going to be drinking a lot of Jack Ramsey's this coming season. I'll tell you that much right now.
I'm going to take the over on that. Where are you? Where would you sit on that? Would you take the over?
I'm gonna take the under, man. Forget you. Forget your crazy conspiracies. I'm gonna say he signs Beasley because he'll make it make sense. And
Beasley's the new Melo redemption tour.
How is he bringing in Emmanuel Mudiay? What am I missing here? Am I going crazy? Am I the one not watching NBA basketball?
Hey, listen, man. New Mudiyay's out there. Ntilikina's option didn't get picked up.
Oh, my goodness.
Ntilikina's a guy. I shouldn't say his option. His qualifying offer has not been picked up.
He's going to cite that night that Beasley got MVP chance in the Garden, like, Chase, he was getting MVP chance.
Yeah. And it's funny because he's actually like lesser Melo in that he's as bad or maybe worse as a playmaker, but doesn't have the shooting ability. But I tell you what,
was one that everybody thought was going to hit, man. Like
well,
everybody's
yeah.
like,
I mean, he killed at K-State. I mean, Jesus, he was
Yeah.
a monster. I mean, he could score on anybody. But it's rolling this back to the CJ discussion part of this. 2017 was the year for me. That draft, it just opened up so many doors. And I said at the time, between 2016 and 2017 draft, and I said it, and this is not to like shit on Zach, they have failed so miserably in the past year that this will be felt for years to come.
Yeah.
And then it was.
Me and the homie Richmond, we're gonna do a random pod ranking our 5. Like, what's your 5 moments of Neil's tenure that you think have screwed or put the organization in this spot where they potentially could lose Dame?
Mm-hmm.
And spoiler alert, I've told Mike, and he kind of disagreed, but I told him it's the 2017 draft. It's not even a contest.
You can make a very, very good argument.
It's the pick. It's the not moving the pick. It's the asset you ended up picking. You made so many mistakes that night. And I think that's really doomed them. I mean, imagine this team
getting nothing for LaMarcus and giving CJ his deal a year early and not trading him. I think those
Mike said that one.
Yeah. I think those are like the 4, and then you kind of just put them in whatever order you like.
But even if you don't love the Dame CJ partnership, you know it's good, but you don't love it. Imagine them with Bam.
Yeah. Bam. Hell, you can take the lesser guys in that list. You know, air quotes, the non-all-stars like Bam and Donovan and John Collins and OG. And they might be a better fit.
Playoffs.
I mean, watching the video work that I was doing for Dame, I watched a ton of Trey and possession after possession of what he did with John Collins. Like, I know Dame is not the level of lob passer or just passer in general that Trey is.
Trey's got a great feel.
It's just so intrinsic and natural. It's unbelievable to watch. But even with that, like what John Collins can do, it's just – and I had questions about Collins' defense, and his offense got even better, but just on a profile, he's just so much – I can't do this. I can't go down this path because it's so freaking painful.
Well, don't worry. We got Greg Brown. We're coming back, baby.
Yeah, baby. Back. Listen, Greg Brown and Trenton Watford out here catching strays for being second round and two-way guys. And I'm like, let's leave those guys alone. Let's check.
They're not. I mean, they're young guys trying to make their way in the league.
Like, they're just trying to get the bag, man. Like, let them be. If you want to bash somebody, bash Neil.
I won't dive on this pod or anything. I'm not going to dive in with people and argue if somebody is a kid getting drafted in the second round. If let's crap on him. I'm not trying to crap on a player.
No, let him go get his guaranteed money and try to make a living. Leave him the hell alone.
Right. I'm more upset by the dude making the pick than I am the pick.
Yes. We're going to pivot back to Norm here real quick. Blazer Fan 72, a.k.a. Jason for PDX, at Hecubus01. What does a 3-year lucrative deal for Norm look like? Are we talking max money or just below it? I'll take this one quick because it's not going to be max money.
Yep.
But I've heard from 3 different people today who have had decent intel in the past that I don't trust exclusively, but I think they're in the ballpark. And I've heard anywhere from 24 to 26. I think 26 is on the high side, and I think that may be the agent pumping a little bit of goodness in that regard. So, but I do expect it to be front loaded.
3 or 4?
3 years is, I think, ultimately where it lands at. If
you front load it with what? We said 26 in the first.
I think 26 in the first, end up probably 18, 19 in the third.
Manageable, yeah.
It's a slightly more expensive Aaron Gordon deal.
And I think if they sign Norm, even if they run it fully back and it doesn't work, which we know it won't, when Dame asks out, it's going to be easily tradable. Like some team will go, okay,
especially 18 million for 31-year-old Norman Powell, on an expiring deal. You can talk yourself into that.
Okay, now I have to do a follow up to that question. I think that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming they run it back and sign Norm, to you, what number is he at team wise? Is he your number 3? Should he be your number 2? Seems a little blasphemous because CJ, but where do you put him on that pecking order? Because Nurk wants more touches. Dame ain't changing anything. And CJ here, he's going to continue to operate as is. Like, does Norm realize he's going to be the 4th option on many games?
And that's the thing where I think when you look at this team, as far as importance, Dame is obviously number one. I think Nurk has been the second most important player on this team for a couple years. People have said, that they don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
He has to carry the defensive burden. Like, he has been that guy when he has been healthy. He is also their second best creator or playmaker. I think those two things elevate him in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't think they need CJ's level of shot creation with Dame and Nurk. And so I would probably elevate Norm above CJ in importance, but not pecking order. So Nurk's touches probably end up being less than CJ's, but the timing and importance of touches for Nurk is higher for me. But either way, Norm's still sliding in at 3 or 4 in shots per game. 3 he can probably live with. 4 he's probably going to Chauncey like, hey, coach, we got to figure the bleep out. Like,
who's to stop CJ from doing that if he slips to a 3 or 4 situation?
I don't think he'll, as long as he's here, because he's Neil's guy. Like, to me, CJ is more Neil's guy than Dame is Neil's guy. Like, CJ is the golden, Raiders of the Lost Ark type, stuff that's just sitting there that, Neil can't stare at.
Look, Dame is Neil's stepson and CJ is his real son.
Yeah.
Like, we know that's how he. Yeah, I love my stepson. He's great.
Also, have you seen my son?
Christian, come over here.
Yeah, Dame is Dame Dalla. CJ is Christian James. Christian James. Never CJ. It's great. I mean, I would say it's not true, but I would love it that he actually did that.
Yeah, I know.
Jeremy Krecklow at Strife. Who's the best player Portland could trade for and receive in a sign and trade that would maximize Damian Lillard? So you're hard capping yourself. So you're talking about a potential free agent, and you're likely trading either CJ or a combination of like Nurk and Cove or Cove.
What was the question again? Rephrase the question.
But who's the best player that the Blazers could trade for that would be in a sign and trade that would maximize Damian Lillard?
Oh my God, you're gonna have to carry the load on this one.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a free agent, like, unless you're talking about like Kawhi, which
not getting Kawhi.
Well, they're not, and he's going to re-sign a 2-year deal with the Clippers and get like a mini max. That's like the worst kept secret in the NBA that this is basically planned since 2019. This is
which, by the way,
the LeBron path of maximizing money.
It absolutely is, and I understand the player side of it. The Clippers, I'm kind of like, I get why you're doing it.
I'm getting kind of tired of it as far as like covering it.
Well, right. And also, we traded everything. Can we get can we get bigger commitments and 2-year deals here?
There needs to be like a legal way to deal with this.
Yes.
Instead of like everybody knowing what's going on and then everybody like, nope, nothing untoward happening here. Like Rodney Hood getting a $10 million offer after blowing out his Achilles. Like,
dude, oh my God, that's such a Neil move. I love today watching the news drop of Miami not picking up Iguodala's $15 million a year. And then getting that agreement with Goran Dragic, basically lining things up, and people are like, "Yeah, we see what's going on."
Weird. It's almost like, that's exactly enough money for a Kyle Lowry sign-in trade and a DeMar DeRozan mid-level exception. Weird.
Which, by the way, Lowry, DeRozan, Butler, Bam,
Duncan.
Wow. You think Duncan's coming back? Watch out, Brooklyn. Watch out, Milwaukee.
Listen, it's a team full of a-holes and a dude who shoots the living hell out of the ball.
Dude, that Miami-Milwaukee series would be amazing.
A bloodbath. It'd be a bloodbath. Brooklyn would hate that because they just grind possessions into dust.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Brooklyn's not about that, I think.
No.
And I don't really trust Brooklyn to be healthy in that situation either. Giannis and Jimmy go full on. No, sign me up for that. I love watching those two guys go at it. Me too,
I love
because they're the ultimate. They're ultimate competitors who are dogs and will do any and everything to make their team win. I love when you get superstar buy-in like that.
And I wonder if we get like, I hate doing this because it puts him on that level, but he is LeBron level like recommitment, like tasting that first title. Like when he got that first one in Miami, when they came back the next year, that was
That was his best year ever. That was his
Holy.
greatest year. That's the best
Yep.
LeBron I've ever watched in my life.
Playing at 305 pounds, just annihilating everything in sight. Like, is Giannis going to be that guy? Like, I tasted it. I want it again, you know?
Well, how about, I think there's a ripple effect there too. It's not just, is Giannis going to have that? Middleton now knows he's that dude.
He's that dude, yeah.
Drew Holiday made a huge impact, and he couldn't have played worse offensively. How good is he?
What is he,
going to
4
be
of 17 in Game 6?
Oh, it was awful. But, like, how big was he on defense and coming up with big stops, huge lobs? Like,
Gets the strip on Book and makes the play of the series. And
dude, there's always stuff. I look for those even more so than the superstar, because, like, if those guys have belief, the superstar for sure.
And they don't want out. They want to stay. That's the
Yes.
other part. Like, it's not like the NFL where, everybody wins a Super Bowl and everybody goes and gets their money,
right?
Unless it's Tom Brady and the Bucs and they bring back all 22 starters. That's a different podcast, though.
Every coach too, by the way.
Yeah, that's the Jacked Bucks podcast that'll be coming next.
That's the Steve Young podcast. Talking about Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
But yeah, as far as like sign and trades, there's nobody out there for Portland. Like, you could talk me into Spencer Dinwiddie. You could talk. Like, I made a fake trade 2 years ago. I said, listen, I would absolutely unequivocally trade CJ McCollum for Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. And this is before LeVert broke out. Dinwiddie was looking like a sixth man. It was like, that's not enough. That's not enough. Right now, that would be such a tremendous overpay for CJ McCollum. It's out of this world. It's so, like, I could see, like, if you trust in Dinwiddie's health, because he's he's not the shooter that CJ is, but he's much bigger. He's, a whole 6'6", 6'7", a bit more of an initiator. He might even be willing to come off the bench. Like, if you signed him, like if you did a sign and trade CJ for Dinwiddie, if you could work the money out and you retain Norm, I mean, you're hard capped at that point in time. But if you could make this work, dollar for dollar, let's say in theory, and you had Spencer being willing to be your super six man, like the Ginobili, play 33 a night but off the bench, and you ran Dame, Norm, get your TP, MLE, small forward, Cov, Nurk, but you had Dinwiddie.
But Spencer's going to be on your closing lineup. That's what you tell him. You're like, hey, be our sixth man, but you're our closing lineup.
Because he could potentially be big enough to legitimately play some three.
Is he 6'7"?
He's 6'6", 6'7". He's a bigger dude. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But you'd have somebody who could no doubt run your team. I think it's a little bit of a wonky fit, but I could be talked into it. That's probably as far as I go with a sign and trade coming to Portland.
Do you think he would be upset if I became the guy every night on the conference call or the press conference on the Zoom?
Asking about Bitcoin?
Just asking crypto questions. Not even like he dropped 30 in a game or he dropped only 10. And I'm just like, hey, Spencer.
What do you think your Top Shot is worth on Ethereum right now?
My blockchain right now is up 20,000. Should I sell or you think I should hold out? Like, all I'm asking.
Honestly, he's the kind of guy that would legitimately entertain it.
He would probably love it, right?
That would be the best. Like, that would be the best part about it, to be honest. Like, that we wouldn't have 8 dudes talking about their wine. We'd have at least like 4 dudes talking about wine and at least 1 Bitcoin, bro. Like, a little bit of diversify your assets and the shit you talk about.
Well, and also don't tell me we can't acquire him by a sign and trade. The dude wants to be paid in crypto, and now the Blazers sponsors on their jerseys a crypto company.
Oh my God. You just
all lining.
It's all lining up now.
Gunnarsson and Hyken, they tweet out that eyeball.
Just third eye it now. Oh my God. We're gonna have to tweet that. That's gonna be the headline for this. Is somehow like Spencer Dinwiddie third eye, like just I'll just do a little design with, was it Storm X, Spencer Dinwiddie and Trailblazers, like draw it into like a triangle.
Just do the Photoshop and tweet at the picture to him, and he'll probably like, you guys are wild for this one, man.
I mean, we'll make it happen.
By the way, totally missed opportunity. If you're doing a Bucks podcast and it's not called Brad Johnson's Elbow Pads, I don't know what you're doing.
The guys at Blue Wire, they've got a podcast network. It's the Gyro Step podcast.
The Gyro Step. Okay.
Or Euro, if you want to be,
I like the I like when people call it a gyro.
I have to say that because when I say Euro, they think I'm saying Euro. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so like,
yeah.
You have to like, I don't know if it's the way I say it or it's just like the irritating rasp in my voice, but everybody's like, oh, you're Euro Step. No. Gyro. Yeah, Gyro. So Euro. But yeah.
But I know a lot of people that call it a Euro. They call it gyro. They call it a Euro, and people making them are just like, you know what? I'm used to all of them.
Just toss the lamb on the pita with the sauce, okay?
Can I get the lamb and the beef mix and extra sauce?
Okay, so wait, now we're going to deviate here real quick. Number one, yes, give me the Kafka, no doubt about it. I am pro lamb all the way. Are you a tzatziki sauce or are you spicy garlic?
I want to say, look, I like the spicy garlic, but garlic makes me fart. I have to go tzatziki sauce.
I can't. I'm not a cucumber guy. I can't do cucumber.
But you can add some spice to that sauce to make it still amazing.
The cucumber it leaves a.
I love cucumber.
See, I don't like. What do I got here? I've got the blood orange grapefruit bubbly.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Listen, I love it, but like, there's certain things I just can't mess with, man. And cucumber is very, very. We're going to turn this into a food takes podcast real quick. I just recently conquered green beans.
Like you couldn't eat them before?
They made me so physically ill. Like the smell in general.
Yeah.
And I had a very nice chicken dinner with some perfectly cooked French green beans. Long, crisp.
Yeah.
Perfectly cooked. And I was like, my wife just looked at me. She's like, just try it. I was like, fine, it's a nice restaurant, I'll do it. You know?
Yeah.
And I ate them. I was like, nom. And the next thing, like all of the green beans are gone. I haven't touched the chicken. She's like, they're good, aren't they? And I'm like, yes, they are.
Dude, green beans are one of my favorite vegetables to eat. I'll tell you the one thing I will never. I've tried them a million times, by the way. I've tried the box ones, and I've tried 5 or 6 people's homemades, different people.
Mm-hmm.
Scalloped potatoes are the worst possible creation in human history.
What? I thought you were going to go with like Brussels sprouts and I was going to champion you.
And Brussels sprouts are amazing. I eat Brussels sprouts all day. I eat them with eggs and some bacon.
So wrong.
Please.
So wrong.
Scalloped potatoes, I will quite literally put a scalloped potato in my mouth, Danny, get close to swallowing it, and almost throw up to the point of having to spit that bite out.
Oh, my God.
They're awful. If to make potatoes, there's at least 5 other ways I'd rather have potatoes. I wouldn't even think of scallop.
Name them now, because this
mashed
is like
potatoes, French fries, tater tots, hash browns, baked potatoes.
You're halfway there.
Roasted potatoes. Okay. I mean, you want me to go more?
Yeah, I want all 10.
Potato chips. I'm running out of ideas, but those 7 or 8 are way better than scallop. I'd rather eat a raw potato.
See, I was literally having this discussion last night. This might have been last night about potatoes au gratin and like how it's like the last time I had potatoes au gratin, I was like, yeah, you know what's great about potatoes au gratin? It's always good. And they're made with scalloped potatoes with just the perfect amount of crispy cheese around the edges.
I don't know what that is, man. I'm a potato guy. That is the one food item. I don't like seafood, but like that's just like a seafood taste. I can try it and be okay. I cannot swallow scalloped potatoes. No way.
That is definitely a weirder one that I have heard. That is for sure.
No, thank you.
All right, this from Joel at Mr. Iolius, frequent supporter and listener of the show. What should Billups focus on? Just defense? See how much he can improve? CJ, is Nurk a lost cause? What do you when you're looking at Chauncey Billups? What are you most excited for, and what are you hoping happens? I guess the ethereal question.
So I don't know if they're going to do enough roster-wise to change the defense to the point where it's like some unit that people are going to think is going to win a championship. I actually am more interested in what he does offensively. Now, the Blazers' offense, I think, was the second or first best offense in the NBA.
Yeah, but it's too ISO heavy. It's too pick and roll heavy. That's, you know.
But I what I want to see though is I'm genuinely interested in doing more Dame, CJ off ball
optimization,
facilitating.
Stuff.
You know what I mean? Like like little X's and O's tweaks, like what his differences are from Terry's. Because Terry was good, but obviously Terry wasn't perfect. So
I think he got a little, not necessarily lazy, but maybe content in letting some things go that probably shouldn't have been in the last year.
I think it's easy for any coach to have a superstar and get a little lazy, to be honest with you. Like Budenholzer, before he won the title, was about to get fired. Like,
yeah, that's the hilarious part, is he was quite literally about to get fired.
And it was like the worst kept secret in the NBA. And then they win a championship, and now he's getting selfies in the Milwaukee airport. I don't. People think Chauncey's going to be this amazing defensive mind. I'm not.
He
sold.
might be.
Yeah, he might, but I'm not sold on that. Just because he played for the Pistons in 04 means nothing to me. I want to see what he does offensively, what kind of tweaks he makes with Dame, assuming CJ comes back, Norm, Nurk, etc.
I have reached out to a few people that have worked with or around Chauncey last year in Los Angeles, and the common thread that I've been able to pull is, I don't know. Like, what is he going to run? I don't know. Like, will he pull some stuff from his days with the Pistons and Larry Brown and, like, some upgraded horn sets? Maybe. Does he, like, take most of the guts of the Blazers offense and, like, start from scratch? Or does he, like, take what was there and tweak it? Does he take from Ty Lue and maybe use some of the ball movement principles that they focused on there? I'm like, I don't know. Is there a lot of stuff you can build on there where you have a wing or an offense dominated by two shot-creating wings? Like, the two things that the Blazers don't have and haven't had? Like, are you going to run some inverted sets? Okay. Like, a lot of 5-out stuff with Nurk? Okay. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to look at. It's honestly, it's easier for me to see them take some defensive principles. But even in that regard, I don't think, like, we're going into year 10 of Damian Lillard. I don't think a new coach is going to suddenly make him better getting around screens. Like, does he give a damn more in certain possessions because somebody's barking at him? Yeah. But do I believe that some of the fundamental stuff that has been an issue for near decade is suddenly just going to boom change? No, I don't.
Hard to change the stripes of a zebra, right?
I mean, yeah, it's one of those situations where you look at it, it's just like, yeah, I want to believe that could be true, but my experience and from what I have seen and who I have talked to, that's a very unlikely thing to see. Like, how many superstars, how many times has LeBron James changed his game?
Like 2, right? Largely.
Yeah, like he went from Cleveland LeBron to Miami LeBron to back to Cleveland LeBron.
Yeah,
like,
he went back to his old, I'm running this thing.
So you go up and down the like, Paul George got slightly better as a creator with Chauncey Billups, and it was like, see, if Chauncey will come here, he'll get. It's like, no, he went from like a so-so creator to like so creator. Like, it wasn't like it was exponentially. It was just minor tweaks around the edges. So I don't expect Chauncey to unlock a million things in Dame or Nurk or CJ. Does putting Nurk in the middle of the floor and getting him more involved and getting him more touches make him a happier Nurk, therefore a more effective Nurk? Yes. Like, is there enough buttons that you can turn where if you turn them all the right way, you could get more out of the sum of the parts? Certainly. But I don't think that elevates them into another stratosphere or makes them any better or higher tier of a team than they currently are as constructed.
Am I misremembering Chauncey being asked specifically a defensive question at the presser and him kind of basically saying, I'm going to hire an assistant? Like, he's not as locked in defensively as we thought he would be.
He's basically said he's going to have help on both sides to install what he kind of wants to take on principles. So
it's such a risky hire. This was and it gave him a 5-year deal. It's like, okay.
Yeah, everybody came after me when I said 5 because they're like, well, it's 4-1. I'm like, 4-1. Dame's gone and won.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's necessarily, but I'm pulling for Chauncey. I genuinely am. I
want to be wrong. People need to understand this. I want to do a podcast, Danny, where we were like,
listen,
hey,
I will list all the things
Pascal Siakam.
I legitimately put this out there. I will do the hot sauce challenge if the Blazers traded CJ McCollum for a top 4 pick. I unabashedly said that because I didn't believe there was a chance in hell it was going to happen.
But clearly there was no chance that was happening.
And yet
I didn't understand it anyway. I was try to talk the logical sense into like why it could be Houston or Toronto, but it's like, why would they do that? I don't
even if you went the roundabout way where Simmons goes to Toronto, Siakam and Kyle Lowry end up in Philly, CJ ends up in Philly, the 4 ends up in Portland. That was kind of like the framework that I had heard discussed.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only time that I had heard 4 and Portland associated. I could at least see Portland being like, hell no. Like, that's the one instance where I might even, like, back Neil up in a little bit of a sense of, like, you're going to turn Ben Simmons into Lowry, Siakam, and CJ, and we just get the number 4? Like, if I'm Neil...
You're getting the rebuild part of that trade. You're not getting the help and out trade.
And I'd be like, nah, fam. That would be the one time where if I was Neil, I'd be like, nah. Like, that is the only time. And even then, I would have done a truckload of research because I reached out to some people in Detroit who I was like, hey, if, say, the number 4 and Derek Jones Jr. or Robert Covington or something along that line was on offer for Jeremy Grant, would that be enough to suffice? And the guys that I talked to were like, I think Detroit would have to be interested in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Then they could take the number 4 and go get their Scotty Barnes to pair with Cade Cunningham or Jalen Suggs or whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I've ever seen that number 4 stuff like really be a part of this.
I was just disappointed that it didn't come to fruition. I wasn't surprised, but I was sitting there like everybody else going, number 4. Nope.
All right. Well, we are an hour and 10 minutes into this. We went deep, and there's actually still more questions. So I'm going to push some of these off. I'm going to end up doing a midweek one. We'll wrap them till next week if they don't get answered. Brandon, episode 1 in the books. Plug everything and anything. Make this a very normal thing. All organic, almost like you've done a read for something like this before.
Coming up this week. Give me a follow on Twitter, Instagram. Join me if you are a golfer out there. Join me on my golf journey as I try to get back into the 80s. I'm having a swing coach lessons. The student is basically clowning me right now. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter at Brandon Sprague. Catch the radio show 6 to 9 a.m. on 1080 The Fan. We dive into a lot of the local stuff, maybe not as deep as some of these Blazers, who's going to be the backup to the backup. But
that's what this is here for.
But this is what it's here for. It's an outlet for me and Danny to get all our rage, our thoughts, our emotions. Like
not all of it, thank God.
Scallop potatoes being awful. Give me a follow. Tune into the radio show. I got another announcement coming sometime mid this week, late this week on some stuff kind of brewing. Another side project that I'm doing. And continue to tune into the pod throughout the week. If Danny doesn't get to the questions, tune in next weekend and we'll touch on all things, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, brother. As always, you can find me on social media at Danny Marang, at DannyMarang. I still can't get the damn Danny Marang handle on Instagram because somebody's still squatting on it. I will eventually someday.
I'll DM him and threaten him like, hey.
He never had a post. That's the thing. It's been sitting there for years. And I'm like, you monster, get off that.
That's the worst. That's the worst.
That very, very common name that is, of course, Danny Marang. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Please. Like, rate, review. Please, 5-star, 1-star. Let us know what you think. We are genuinely thrilled about doing this. We love you guys. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. If you're listening, watch it on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel on there. Everything that I do, every piece of media that I do outside of my writing, which I have done less and less of because I'm moving to video, is on YouTube. YouTube.com/Danny Marang. Pay attention for the weekly podcast that we'll do with Brandon. We'll have post-game reactions and wrap-ups and weekly wrap-ups throughout the season. I've got 2 monster guests scheduled for this week. If you watch the show, the live show on Thursday, you know who those are. You'll see the announcements on Tuesday. I am very, very excited to do those, and I've got a couple players lined up as they come back into town and basketball life resumes. And again, Blue Wire Podcast Network. Subscribe, rate, review. Jack Ramsey's for Brandon Sprague. I'm Danny Marang. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.